Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Temple Beth El on this beautiful Friday night. At least it's not snowing.
A melody of Shemitah, of release. As we think about that which we may want to be letting go of in this moment. Ya-la-la-la, ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, ya-la-la-la, ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. To those who are here with us in the sanctuary, to those who are with us online. One of the challenges in this world is not simply the fact that we have two congregations that we try to merge all every week here, but also the fact that we try to make the spaces where we are into sacred spaces. It might be easier or it might be more difficult to do depending upon where you are. But hopefully the kavanah that we have in our hearts, the intention that we have to make this our sacred space, to make that your sacred space, is something that will come as the evening continues, as our community grows, as the messages of the prayers affect our minds. We are certainly glad to be here with one another, and even though we have two or more worship spaces to think about, we are one in terms of welcoming Shabbat, giving this gift to humanity, this gift of rest from the hardness of the week gone by. May our Shabbat be even a time of goodness. May it be a time of memory. May it be a time of cherishing the love that we have in our hearts. We want to welcome everybody because it's great to be here with you. On page 128 in the prayer book is Hine Ma Tov. It's at the top of page 128. It's the words you know. The song, the melody is known to many, but not everyone, maybe. We'll catch on.
Hey, matov manai, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov manai, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov manai, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov manai, shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is,
How good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is to be together on this day.
how good it is,
How good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine matov manai, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov manai, shevet achim gam yachad.
how good it is,
How good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is to be together on this day.
how good it is,
How good it is,
how sweet it is,
how sweet it is to be together on this day. Hine matov manai, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov manai, shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad.
shevet achim,
Shevet achim gam yachad. The sound of this match igniting, bringing light to our hearts and to this sanctuary. The release of light that warms the heart, the glowing wicks of these candles signaling that Shabbat has begun. May we indeed see soon the day of rest upon us, and may we take advantage of that in our lives. On page 121, I want to invite you to join with one another as we invite Shabbat into our lives in this community. Page 121 at the top. As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Kabbalat Shabbat, the part of the service that we now enter, allows us to welcome Shabbat with song as well as light. Tonight we're beginning Kabbalat Shabbat on page 134, Neharot Yimcha'u Chaf, page 134.
We'll be starting 5 lines from the top. Yiram hayam u'melo'o. It's been a while since we've done this melody, but for those of you who recall and you're ready to join in right away, wonderful. And if it takes a moment for it to sink in, join in whenever you feel comfortable. Yiram hayam u'melo'o.
Yiram hayam u'melo'o.
Yiram hayam u'melo'o.
Yiram hayam u'melo'o.
Yivel v'yoshveva.
Yiram hayam u'melo.
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 Tevel v'yoshveva.
Yiram hayam u'melo.
Neharot imcha uchaf.
Yelelelelelele.
Yachararim yiraneinu. Neharot imcha uchaf. Yelelelelelele. Yachararim yiraneinu. Neharot imcha uchaf. Yelelelelelele. Yachararim yiraneinu. Neharot imcha uchaf. Yelelelelelele. Yachararim yiraneinu. Yiram hayam u'melo.
Yiram hayam u'melo.
Yiram hayam u'melo.
Yiram hayam u'melo.
Tevel v'yoshveva. Yiram hayam u'melo. Neharot imcha uchaf. Yelelelelelele. Yachararim yiraneinu. Neharot imcha uchaf. Yelelelelelele. Yachararim yiraneinu. Yiram hayam u'melo.
Yiram hayam u'melo.
Yiram hayam u'melo.
Yiram hayam u'melo.
Tevel v'yoshveva. Yiram hayam u'melo.
On page 138, Lecha Dodi, we continue our Kabbalat Shabbat. The imagery of this piyut is this image of Jerusalem rising, in addition to the fact that we are welcoming Shabbat into our midst. And so we have many things that we think about, whether it's Jerusalem this week in particular, or whether it is the coming of Shabbat. Indeed, we are inviting this dear one to spend Shabbat with us.
Yadadadadai lecha dodi. Yadadadadai likrat kala. Yadadadadai pnei Shabbat. Pnei Shabbat dekabela. Yadadadadai lecha dodi. Yadadadadai likrat kala. Yadadadadai pnei Shabbat. Pnei Shabbat dekabela. Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad. Ishniyanu el hamiuchad. Adonai echad. U'shemo echad. L'shemo tiferet v'letila. Lai lai lai. Yala la la lai lecha dodi. Yala la la lai likrat kala. Yala la la lai pnei Shabbat. Pnei Shabbat dekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha. Yehi mekor haberacha. Merosh mikedem yesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Yai lai lai. Yada la la lai lecha dodi. Yada la la lai likrat kala. Yalalalalalai b'nei Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Verse 5.
Itoreri, kiva orech, kumi ori, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai, alayich nigla. Yalalalalalai likrat kala, yalalalalalai pnei Shabbat, pnei Shabbat nekabela.
At verse 9.
Oi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam besimcha, uv'tohola, tov emunei, am segula. Likrat kala, yalalalalalai b'nei Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekabela, yalalalalai lecha dodi, yalalalalai likrat kala, yalalalalai b'nei Shabbat, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
And on page 140, Psalm 92, a psalm for the Shabbat day, Tov lehodot.
Mizmor shir liyom ha-Shabbat, Tov lehodot Adonai, Tov lehodot Adonai, ulezamer leshiv ha'elyon, Tov lehodot Adonai, Tov lehodot Adonai, Tov lehodot Adonai, ulezamer leshiv ha'elyon, Tov lehodot Adonai, lehagi baboker chazdecha, lehagi baboker chazdecha, ve'emunatcha baleilot, ve'emunatcha baleilot, Tov lehodot Adonai, lehagi baboker chazdecha, lehagi baboker chazdecha, ve'emunatcha baleilot, ve'emunatcha baleilot, Tov lehodot Adonai.
To tell of your gladness and loving kindness in the morning, and to sing of your faithfulness at night. So we learn that the whole day is filled with praise of God, perhaps praise of the source of creation, praise of humanity that acts to make the world a better place. We as God's stewards have that as our responsibility. As we enter Ma'ariv, as we enter now this coming time of worship, we think about our week gone by. We think about the disappointments that weigh upon us. We think about the joys that we might have in our hearts. We might think about the fact that this is just a complex world and people are saddled sometimes at the same moment with both joyful occurrences and painful remembrances. And so we struggle through the world to make this place good, even though we are human, and even though we all have these feelings within us. But we also know that there are people here to share it with us. So we take our misfortunes and hopefully someone can help us with them, and maybe we can help someone with theirs. That's the reason for relationship in this world. And so we begin worship perhaps with some of those thoughts in our minds as we use this day to restore ourselves and indeed make this our day of rest and a day of purpose for us. Ma'ariv begins on page 146. We invite the community to rise with Baruch Hu, page 146.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach leolam va'ed.
On page 149, we offer together at the middle of the page. This is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over?
El Chai v'Kayam, Tamidim lo chaleinu le'olam va'ed, Baruch Ata Adonai, HaMa'ariv Aravim.
Amen. At the top of 150, Ahavat Olam.
This is a throwback to last summer. We sang this probably every week for like 2 or 3 months last year, but it's been a while. So if it takes a minute to get back into our system, let's see how we do. Ya lai 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 lai, ya lai 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 ya lai lai lai, ya lai 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 lai, ya lai 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 lai, ya lai 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 ya lai lai lai, ya lai 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 lai. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, v'shofeinu, uvkumeinu, nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, v'shofeinu, uvkumeinu, nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Kihem chayenu, yorech yameinu, u'bahem negei yomam v'layla, ve'ahavatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim. ata Adonai Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Page 152.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. We continue on page 154 at the top.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha ve'hayu hadevarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Veshinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha b'veitecha, u'v'lechtecha v'derech, u'v'shochbecha u'v'kumecha, u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, u'chtabtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'item kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. Adonai Elohechem emet.
At the top of 157, we offer this together. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land, that the winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness, that there is no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. On page 158.
Yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 yai, lai, 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 lai. Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai, micha mocha Nedar v'kodesh, Nora, Nora, Hilot, Hilot, Oseh, Oseh, Ele, Ele, Nora, Nora, Hilot, Hilot, Oseh, Oseh, Ele, Ele, Malchutecha ra'u vanecha, Okei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam Zevi anu ve'ameru Adonai Adonai imloch le'olam le'olam va'ed Adonai Yimloch Leolam Va'ed. Yai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
Amen. On page 160 is Hashki Venu, a prayer reminding us of the locus, perhaps, of where we find peace in the shelter of God's peace. There are so many people in the world who need this shelter today, and we pray that we can continue to take advantage of it, to offer it to others as well. Page 160, Hashki Venu.
We'll be using text both from the indent further down the prayer and at the top. Ushmor tzeitenu uvoeinu lechaim uleshalom me'ata ve'ad olam me'ata ve'ad olam me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'ha'amideinu shomreinu l'chaim u'feros aleinu sukat shlomecha me'ata ve'ad olam me'ata ve'ad olam me'ata ve'ad olam ushmor tzeitenu uvoeinu lechaim uleshalom me'ata ve'ad olam me'ata ve'ad olam me'ata ve'ad olam. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom v'ha'amideinu shomreinu l'chaim u'feros aleinu sukat shlomecha me'ata ve'ad olam me'ata ve'ad olam me'ata ve'ad olam.
As we consider the plight of migrants who are encamped just outside the borders of our nation, we ask blessings upon those who have joined this caravan of immigrants, they who leave their homes in one part of the world in order to find rest and respite in another. Whether they be outcasts or seekers, wealthy or impoverished, may they find a refuge from the dangers of the road. Whether they be protected from the elements or nearly naked and fearful and exposed on the way, may someone help to alleviate their distrust and enable them to be enveloped in this sukkah of peace, this shelter of peace. May they know rest and ease and contentment.
Ushmor tzeitenu uvoeinu lechaim u'leshalom Me'ata ve'ad olam, 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 Me'ata ve'ad olam. Baruch atah Adonai, haporesu kashalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim.
Amen. In all of our liturgy, the tefillah, which now begins on page 164, is our opportunity to delve a little deeper into our hearts, to delve a little deeper into what we truly want from the world and our interactions with it. So we begin on page 164 with the tefillah. We invite you to rise.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise.
166.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Velohei Avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasarim Tovim, Ve'Konei HaKol, Ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot ve'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Le'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah.
Page 168.
Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol atah Rav le'Hoshia, Morid hatal, Mechalkel Chaim bechesed, Mechayeh hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Micha mocha bal gevurot, Umido melach, Melech meimit umechayeh, umatzmiach Yeshua, v'ne'eman ata lehachayot hakol baruch atah Adonai, mechayeh hakol.
Page 170.
Ata kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom yehalelucha selah, baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh.
You may be seated. As we now take some time quietly to offer prayers of our hearts, I would offer this brief meditation beforehand. We offer gratitude for our hallowed memories and our abiding hopes. Let us lift our thoughts that we may renew our minds. Help us to show that we are children of the universe by giving ourselves faithfully to the tasks we face. Help us to convert our convictions into commitment and conduct. Clothe our lives with dignity, deepen our lives with integrity, enlarge our lives with charity. Keep us from blaming others for our own faults and help us to heal the wounds we have inflicted. Help us to face our defeats with courage and to carry our successes with humility. Keep us from the pride that blinds the mind and locks the heart. Make us loyal to our convictions in the face of falsehood, but help us to speak the truth in love. Draw us closer to love, building ourselves with confidence, drawing us closer to one another. We offer now time for quiet prayer, and at the end of that, we go to page 3 of the supplement. I hope you all have one. If not, I'll supply you one. But we continue with that on page 3 in the supplement.
In a little while.
In a little while.
If you are still offering meditations in your own heart, you're welcome to continue. We'll join together on page 3 in the supplement these words from a table song that some sing on Shabbat afternoon, set to a melody that we may know from another place. Diror yikra levein imbat vein sorchem kemo vavat neim shimchem velo yushbat shuvenu beyom Shabbat yadanai nai 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 Asher Asei minit asorek betov karmi she'eshav at bnei ami yadadai Shalom, bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Ose shalom bimromav, uyase shalom aleinu. Israel ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imeru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Israel ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Oseh shalom bimromav uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imeru amen.
On page 371 is Misha Beirach. It is a prayer for healing and wholeness, which we offer tonight on behalf of those people with aches and pains in their bodies and disturbed souls or emotions, people in the throes of temporary illness, even people who are enduring terminal illness. When we offer these prayers, we hope that they learn about the fact that we are doing this. Because one community praying for one person can raise that person's spirit and enable them perhaps to fight a little harder those illnesses that remain within. On our ongoing Temple Bethel healing list, we have about 70 individuals this week. And although I won't read their names, they know that we're thinking about them. But there also may be people who are in your minds, people who need special prayers of healing and wholeness. And if you would like to offer the name of someone now, we invite you to do so. As my eyes meet yours, I'll scan around the congregation. And as my eyes meet yours, I invite you to offer a name, if you would like, of someone who needs a prayer of healing and wholeness. Dear God, aloud and in our hearts, we name those facing illness and pain. We join our prayers to the prayers of all who love them. On page 371, at the middle of the page, is Mishaberach, the indented section there. Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'imotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Shabbat Shalom. I want to spend a moment with you, a few moments, really. A few moments in empathy and imagination, unless, of course, something like this actually happened to you, and then it gets personal. But imagine this. You are a migrant, having walked days, weeks, months, years. You can't remember how long you've been on the road. It likely has not been years, but it's been a very long time. The sun is now beating down upon you in this desert region. The air is warm, hot, and dry. You're exhausted. Your lips are parched because of dehydration. Your skin is sunburned. Blisters cover your feet as you have walked already through jungle, desert, plain, and mountain in order to arrive at your location wearing shoes that really had worn out a long time ago. You left your home with a small backpack containing some food, a couple of your life's most treasured possessions, and a few changes of clothing. But eventually they became too heavy for the journey, and you jettisoned those possessions miles ago. You carry nothing except a backpack and a set of official-looking documents written about you, but in a language that you cannot understand. You walk across something that seems like a boundary, and a burly and impolite someone in an official-looking uniform loads you and perhaps your family, if they're fortunate to have made it with you, onto a bus. And the bus begins to go. But you immediately notice that inside the bus, it's dark, because the bus's windows have been severely tinted, and most of them have been covered over with metal plates. And the effect is you can't see outside. You can't see where the bus is going. And for some reason, it's uncomfortably cold inside that darkened bus. Eventually, you see that the bus is going through a security checkpoint of some kind, and it pulls up to one of the largest buildings you have ever seen. It's a large warehouse. It's all white. There is no identifying information on it whatsoever. And in its parking lot, there are a couple of large white tents with people in masks and gloves standing around. You are ushered off the bus. You are directed into one of those tents and onto the many rows of seats within the tents. The bus drives off, and the next thing you hear are these 5 sentences. I'm going to try them in Spanish, but they have been offered in Spanish, and they were offered in English. Bienvenido a los Estados Unidos. Esta es Casa Alitas. Ustedes está en Tucson, Arizona. Nosotros no somos el gobierno. Todos ustedes son libre. Or in English, welcome to the United States. This is Casa Alitas, translates, I think, as House of Wings. You are in Tucson, Arizona. We are not the government, and you are free. Those might be the sweetest words that you may have ever heard. Now, I can't help but think that something akin to this might have happened to our ancestors long ago as they reached the promised land, or perhaps as they migrated over the last 2 millennia. But every person who enjoys the gifts of freedom and liberty should be able to empathize with the basic human need and desire to be free. I hope this scenario, perhaps as stark as it was easy for us to envision. Casa Alitas, this House of Wings, is the place where I worked and learned last month during part of my sabbatical. Working in a migrant welcome center led me back again to consider the value and principles of freedom and our Jewish obligation to secure life for persecuted peoples. Of course, this is not only a Jewish task, it is our American responsibility as well. And yet, how often do we really appreciate it? And why is it that some of our fellow Americans today want to withhold this gift from citizens of other lands who crave it and want to live it? This is something that our ancestors received with some difficulty, but why do we deny it to others? In Behar Bechukotai, which is the Torah portion we read this week, we learn something about an ancient Israelite understanding of freedom. This text is from the 25th chapter of Leviticus. Perhaps it's familiar to you. First in Hebrew, a more familiar language to me than in English. Then in English. Ukratem dror ba'aretz lechol yosheveha, yovel hi tihiyeh lachem, v'shavtem ish el achuzato, v'ish el mishpachto tashuvu. In English, you need to have declared freedom to this land, to all its inhabitants. This will be your jubilee, where each person will return to their original land holding and to their original human family. The word meaning liberty in Hebrew is dror, as we sang a few minutes ago. Dror yikra levein imbat, God will proclaim liberty for all people. This word dror, as envisioned by the biblical authors, means originally something that's free-flowing, like rivers of a land which only have natural and uncontrolled boundaries. Also in the Bible, the word dror means a kind of a bird, which our trusty BDB dictionary translates as swallow. A bird whose aerial feeding skills are well known, who are found on every continent, apparently, and who fly freely and travel far. And within this word dror is also the root of a word meaning habitation or residence. And so perhaps dror, perhaps freedom, was to our ancestors is a residence that is all of these things at the same time. It's free, it's open, it's flowing, and potentially available all over the world. But with the massive buildup of migrants at the southern border of our nation, with last night's dissolution of Title 42 and the chaos that it might bring, with the attitude of extremists who apparently think nothing of initiating a mass shooting to solve what they view as an immigration problem, and with a Congress that's been frozen to act on this issue for decades, our so-called value of liberty in this country means nothing if there is no universally agreed upon process for accepting and actualizing a person's quest for freedom. Again, for 10 days last month, I was privileged to share that welcome ritual, those 5 sentences, with no fewer than 600 new coming refugees each morning. I wonder whether many of the migrants appreciated the consequence of that welcome speech. I suspect they were more consumed and interested with keeping their families in sight, holding on to whatever meager possessions they had, and dealing with the shock upon entering a place of civilization after potentially having spent weeks walking through the desert. At the time, I didn't have the opportunity, really, actually, to savor the meaning of those words, even though I heard them and I took note of them and I wrote them down. I was waist deep in providing food and water to these guests, in offering a smile even behind my COVID-era mask, and in providing a human touch even though I was wearing food service gloves. Here is another vignette. On the first day when I arrived, it was a Friday afternoon around 12:30, and I came to that facility, Casa Alitas, and it was in a state of organized chaos. They'd only been in that facility about 4 weeks, and everything was new to them. But when I got there, I found that no one appeared to be in charge, although someone pointed me to the volunteer coordinator, Christy, who was offering the welcome speech and her orientation to the group of newcomers. She saw me, and I yelled my name, and she said, "Oh, yes, well, these guests over here look like they could use some water," and which I inferred to be my cue to pick up the pitchers and to offer them cups of fresh water. After that shift, which lasted about 4 hours, I composed a prayer to allow me to do my work well. Here is what I offered. Some of you may have heard this last evening at our Niftach Libenu gathering. May the parched lips of my guests not intimidate me from caring for them. May the uniforms of the border police not repulse me or prohibit me from thanking them for safely bringing these migrants to our center. May the scarceness of volunteers in this place to tend to these guests not frighten me or let me lose my faith in humanity, so capable of performing true acts of love and justice. In other words, I said, God, in spite of the difficult conditions of perpetuating the Jewish and American principles of freedom, let the next exposure that these migrants have with Americans be positive ones. And I also said at the end, and in my serving them, let me not screw up. Here are a few other illustrations and descriptions of some of my time at Casa Alitas. They're from an ongoing journal that I kept. Saturday, April 15th, I arrived at 7:50 in the morning for breakfast and the morning kitchen shift, which means that I was there to serve breakfast to some, as you'll hear in a little while, and to get ready to go outside and to serve 600 people, others. It is difficult to speak with many of the migrants. They speak many languages, and they included Spanish, Garifuna, which is an indigenous language in Guatemala, Portuguese, Punjabi, Arabic, French, Russian, Ukrainian, some English, but their native language was not English. The migrants from Latin America had very few English skills. In fact, not as many as those who were from India or from Northern Africa. The way that the guests used their English, that these guests used their English, reminded me of my own weak Spanish skills. I can say a few simple pleasantries like gracias, buena suerte, which is good luck, and some of them can say thank you, but that is all they know. Although when I served water, I could offer up a min mas agua, more water, to them. This is about the content of the meals that I was serving. These boxed welcome meals consisted of a sandwich. Now, a sandwich was in a hamburger bun, or was a hamburger bun with like maybe some chicken slices or turkey slices. Sometimes it was chicken salad, along with 4 slices of American cheese. There was a bag of potato chips or Doritos or something like that. There was an Orville Spunkmeyer packaged cookie, which got nicely soft and pliable in the warm air of Tucson since we were outside, and an apple. And there were vegetarian options for those who needed them. One meal box was given to each guest regardless of age, though at some point we learned that we needed to break down the meals for the younger kids into groups of foods that they would actually eat. Instead, they'd throw away the extra food, and because they had touched it and they'd open up the sandwich bag, we really couldn't reuse it. These meals were the meals that were served in those white welcome tents out in the parking lot of Casa Alitas. and we think that they were the first American food that they tasted on their journey. Now, breakfast for the residents of this facility where I worked consisted of a prepackaged muffin and an apple, American-style coffee, which did not meet the taste expectations of some of the guests. We heard that. And some prepackaged chips, cookies, and bags of peanuts or candy that might have been left over from the previous day. At this facility where I worked, not only did we serve 600 new guests a day, but we also had between 70 and 100 residents who lived there for a few days as they were waiting for their transportation out of town. In this particular place were single men. In another facility in another part of town were single women. In another facility were families with children. In a fourth facility were people who were diagnosed with COVID. And they had one other facility that they were developing. One last observation, by the way, about volunteers, and I want to talk about a special volunteer with whom I worked. And this was not one of the church ladies who came in to work in the Tucson area. It wasn't one of the church gentlemen who came in either. But this one particular volunteer was actually one of the guests. His name was Abdullahi, and he was very willing to come and help volunteer. He also had some knowledge of Arabic. He was fluent in Arabic. He knew some French, and he knew a few words in English as well. And frankly, with all of those languages, I and he could communicate pretty well. He was from Mauritania, sort of on the Western African continent. He was scheduled to leave later in the week, but he knew that he would be sitting on his cot 8 hours during the daylight, forget about the nighttime where he would sleep there, and he wanted to be helpful. And so he came up to us and said, may he volunteer with us? And he did. And for 3 days, he helped us serve meals, serve breakfast. And I understood he served lunch and he served dinner as well to the people in that facility. He wanted to be very helpful. He was very sweet, very tall, very thin. He was an electrical engineer, and that's what he was hoping to do in this country. He was looking for anywhere in that facility where he could offer his help. And because he spoke French and Arabic, again, we were able to communicate, but not only with one another, but he was able to communicate with other people around and translate. Not every tale of volunteerism concludes so nicely, but when taken as a whole, all of these acts of chesed, of loving kindness, certainly bring forth moments of human beauty. They happen, thankfully, far from the chaos that consumes the border stations where our Casa Alitas guests first entered our country a few hours before. And although I do not tonight plan to offer a prescription or a panacea to solve those thorny problems, I would observe only the following, which is, I'm sure, no different from what any of us thinks, that our government and anyone in our government who has any connection or maintains any responsibility to migration matters needs to meet somewhere in a locked room without the view of the press, and without the view of political sides, and hammer out a viable set of policies for our nation and the waves of migrants who seek their freedom here. The uncertainty, the inhumanity, and our nation's unwillingness to live out the principles of human freedom has caused not only bedlam at the border, but also a rise in violent white supremacy and violence directed at immigrants. And after that, all minorities suffer, along with new immigrants, when prejudice rather than good values is allowed to rule. Again, I don't have the solution for managing the large numbers of immigrants who wish to call the United States their home, but very wise people gathered together may ultimately bring forth the solution. I do know that when we can demonstrate our humanity and share it with others, and when we make that our intention, approach, and aim, a valuable and compassionate solution will not be far away. In the book of Exodus, in the 22nd chapter, we learn that no one should afflict or oppress a stranger. And we know the rationale that's given. You know these words. Because we were strangers in the land of Egypt. It's because we, the Israelite people, the Jewish people, because we have empathy behind our Egyptian enslavement and our journeys of the centuries. We know what it means to be a stranger. It's because we have been that other for many years, and we know what it's like to have suffered and to have been enslaved. At Casa Alitas, there is a small but significant ritual that takes place with every group of newcomers who come and sit out in those white tents. It is the removal, the snipping, as we learned to call it, of the plastic government identity bracelet they receive when first they enter the custody of CPB, the Customs and Border Police. When they come to Casa Alitas and are no longer under government care or supervision, one of the orientation people, I was among this group of people, we go around to each guest and we clipped off their identity bracelets. Perhaps it's symbolic of the breaking of the shackles and the beginning of the throwing off of the yoke. Yet I am certain that this ritual, this act, is among the most significant of that day. I hope that all of our experiences are similarly profound, and I hope that these refugees indeed find the refuge they seek. Shabbat Shalom. I also want to read a few paragraphs of a letter that I received today. Perhaps some of us received this letter too, I don't know, but because of what's happening in Israel this week, I want to read a letter written by a woman who is the Senior Vice President of Israel and Overseas Operations in the Office of the Director General of the Jewish Federations of North America. And she writes that despite the optimism in yesterday morning's, which was Thursday morning's update, that a ceasefire was likely, within a few hours, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad fired multiple barrages of rockets at Israeli population centers, killing one civilian in the city of Rehovot and injuring others. The rocket attacks continued for a number of hours, while overnight, last night, only sporadic rocket fire took place. A number of launches remain underway at the time of writing today. There is widespread speculation that this may be a final volley before a formal ceasefire begins. The letter goes on to describe some of the specific actions that are taken, and I can share this with you afterwards. But again, she emphasizes that according to media reports, strong efforts are still underway to finalize a formal ceasefire under Egyptian mediation. Our prayers, as we sang before, our prayer for peace, may that be answered as well as we continue to try and search for peace in that part of the world. I'd like to invite the community, the cantor and I really would like to invite the community to turn to page 570 in the prayer book. Page 570. During these days between the holidays of Pesach and Shavuot, the holiday of our freedom and the holiday of the giving of Torah, the giving of knowledge from Mount Sinai, we count those days because we are anxious in a very real way of receiving Torah, receiving the benefit of knowledge, receiving the benefit of wisdom. And so we offer the counting of the Omer, Sfirat Omer, each day as we worship, because we want to know when will Torah arrive in our hearts, when will we learn the lessons that Torah contains.
And when will we be open to receive it? Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la. Hineni muchad umzuman lekayem mitzvat aseh. Hineni muchad umzuman lekayem mitzvat aseh shel sfirat haomer של ספירת העומר, של ספירת העומר, של ספירת העומר.
Behold, we are ready to fulfill this mitzvah of counting of the Omer.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kirshanu, b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, al sfirat haomer, al sfirat haomer, al sfirat haomer, al sfirat haomer.
Our praise to you, Adonai, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to count the Omer. Today is the 37th day of the Omer, which is 5 weeks and 2 days of the Omer. Hayom shiv'a u'shloshim yom shehem chamisha shavuot u'shnei yamim la Omer.
Lai, 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 lai.
The sanctification of Shabbat Kiddush is found on page 123. This day is made holy by our presence, by our thanking God for the gifts of light and the gifts of fruit of the vine, and for the joy that we have in our hearts being with one another in this community of consolation and comfort. Page 123.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho, be'ahava ufratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila lemikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'acharta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodeshecha, be'ahava uvratzon, inchalatanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat l'chaim. We continue on page 586 with Aleinu. Page 586, we invite you to rise. At the top of the page. Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'atei tidula li'otzer breishit, shehu noteh shamayim ve'yoser aretz, u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al, u'shechinat uzo b'govhei meromim, u'Eloheinu ein od, va'anachnu kore'im u'mishtahavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. Page 591, we may all be seated. We read together at the top of the page, 591.
May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding, love to each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth over all the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with the joy of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. V'ne'emar ve'aya Adonai ve'melech al kol ha'aretz hayom ha'u yeh Adonai echad u'shemo Zecher Tzadik Livracha, may the memory of all of our righteous ones be a blessing. I offer a meditation tonight on page 594. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be, and oh, to lose. A thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me. Your word was gift to me. To remember this brings a painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. Tonight we remember loved ones who passed away in recent days, those whose Yartzeiten occur at this time, and perhaps others who are in your hearts and minds whom you remember on this night. If you are present tonight in mourning, we invite you, or observing a Yartzeit, we invite you to rise as the name of your loved one is recited, and then you'll be joined by the whole community as we offer the mourner's Kaddish. These are those whom we've taken into our hearts with our own. We remember Rudy Saperstein, grandfather of Stephanie Blumenthal. A beloved member of this community, Judy Connie, wife of Rick Connie, mother of Brian Connie, David Connie, and Sherry McKinney, and grandmother of Aidan, Allie, and Sophia Connie, and Megan and Jackson McKinney. Daniel Sinekin, a former member of our synagogue for many years, husband of Sherry Cooper Sinekin, father of Aaron Joel Sinekin, Rudy Samuel Sinekin, and Joshua Paul Sinekin. Sandra Golden, mother of David Golden, Robert Golden, Ruth Bittorf, and Jonathan Golden, grandmother of Sarah and Leah Golden, and Emily and Caroline Bittorf. And a longtime member of this community, we remember Alan Orenberg, partner of Marilyn Graves, father of Kate Orenberg and Rachel Kang. Is that correct? I'm not sure if your last name is Kang or not. I'm sorry. Charlene, thank you. Sorry, Charlene. And grandfather as well. And these are those whose Yartzeiten occur at this time, whose anniversary of their passing occurs tonight, this week. We remember with love Flora Albert, David Askenazi, Sheil L. Becker, Minna O. Bernstein, Elizabeth G. Bress, Joseph L. Kohlberg, Harry Cutler, Jack Epstein, Sylvia F. Epstein, Edith Firstman, Earl Richard Friedman, Esther Goldstein, Gladys K. Greenberg, Dr. Erwin Grossman, Ludwig Hertz, Ann Cantor, Fred Cantor, Henry Kaplan, Nancy Kaufman, Samuel S. Kravitz, Harvey Larson, Jean Loftman, Michael Lessing, Daniel Harold Levy, Dorothy Litcher, Avram Lubing, Charlotte Z. Martin, Jacob Novick, Jonathan Poole, David Rothstein, Kenneth Shear, Isaac D. Siniko, Kenneth Snow, Lillian Stauffer, Evelyn M. Sweet, Shirley Yaffe, Morris Zemmel, and Ethel Zimke. There may be members of this worship community tonight who similarly are remembering loved ones. And if your loved one's name was not on our yahrzeit list, that's okay. It is okay for you to come and share your loved one's name with us, and so we can share our love with you. If there are those who would like to offer other names for this Kaddish list, we invite you to do so. Zichronam livracha, may their memories be blessings in our hearts and the hearts and minds of all those who knew and loved them. Testifying to the faith that binds the generations of our people together, I now invite the community to rise, and on page 598, we offer together the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, ve'alma divrach irutei ve'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman hariv ve'imru, amen. Yehei shemei rabbah mevarach le'alam ulalmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal, shemei dekudsha b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imaru, amen. Yehei shlama rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imaru, amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imaru, amen. May God send peace to all who mourn and comfort to those who are bereaved, and we say, amen. Please be seated. Our service is about to conclude, and when it does, we invite everyone out to the Weinstein Community Court, where we will be sharing an Oneg Shabbat in honor of this day and in honor of your presence here tonight. Tonight's Oneg Shabbat is sponsored by our sisterhood, our Women of Reformed Judaism here at Temple Beth El. A few upcoming events in our community. Tomorrow morning, there will be Torah study both in person and online, led by Steve Olson this week. And at 10:30 in the morning, there will be a worship service here where we welcome Johanna Metner to our bima as a bat mitzvah. This coming week, on Friday next week, there will be Shabbat Midor Lador, our musical Shabbat, beginning at 7:30 p.m. And the following Saturday morning on May 20th, there will be Torah study, led by Steve Olson again. There'll be Cafe Shabbat, which is a reception for our whole community. Just come and share some coffee and bagels. And at 10:30 a.m., we will have confirmation. We have a small confirmation class this year. We have two, but we're so happy to have them create an environment of prayer and of joy in this place. And we have Tfilat Shabbat happening at the same time at 10:30 in the morning. So come and join us for those important worship opportunities. On Sunday, June 4th, is our annual meeting and special volunteer appreciation program. And on Saturday, June 10th, is a special, fun, intergenerational community event with a dinner called Friends and Family Face-Off, a Family Feud-style kind of game. I think you can have a team of up to 8 people. And so come and have a good evening with us for registering or for more information on those or any events that are happening. I do want to add one or two more, actually. Go to tbemadison.org for details and registration. On Friday evening, June 9th, is Pride Shabbat. Cantor, maybe you want to mention something about what we're doing?
Just to say that we have chosen, even though Madison observes some LGBTQ Pride things in August, we've chosen to line up our Pride Shabbat with World Pride, and where Jewish communities in other parts of the country are also observing Pride Shabbatot. We try to do it a little bit earlier in June so we have a chance of catching some of our younger friends who may be disappearing off to summer camp and things like that. But it will be a wonderful opportunity to elevate music of LGBTQ Jewish composers, but also to show how LGBTQ perspectives on our liturgy and on our sacred texts can elevate and provide meaning for us all, and really do provide a wonderful additional source of meaning to our whole Jewish community.
As we recognize the needs of our LGBTQ members, and indeed all the LGBTQ people in our community, they know that we support them. And that support is extremely important for them, for us as well, but more for them in this very
especially in
complex
this
world.
day and age with all that's been going on with legislation across the country, it becomes all the more important to not only assume that they know, but also to say it.
Yes. Also, on that night, on Friday evening, June 9th, this is something a little small, but really quite important. We will be welcoming to this congregation, we hope as many as possible, our Israel travelers, who 2 days later will be leaving for 11 days in Israel. And so there'll be 30 of us going from this area and from areas out, not quite in this area. We invited a whole range of people, so we have a great trip going. The Cantor and I are escorting this group of people to Israel. There are a couple people here in the congregation tonight who are going, so we're happy to be spending time with you all, looking forward to spending time with you all and others in Israel coming up.
And the following morning, Saturday morning, as part of our Pride Shabbat observance, I will be leading Torah study that morning in what I am calling Queering the Text, how LGBTQ perspectives on Jewish sacred texts can provide. I don't remember exactly what my subheading in the calendar event is, but you can find that information on our temple calendar along with everything else.
So for our closing song, we're going to offer Dror Yikra once again, which you can see on page 3 of the supplement, but it's also on page 638 in the prayer book. It all depends upon what you have most convenient, where you'd like to
Dealer's choice.
put your attention. Page 3 or page 638.
We chose this again because it connected a little bit with some of the words from Rabbi's Darash, Ukratim Dror, to you should call out freedom and liberty in the land, and indeed we hope that that is the case. Dror Yikra. Dror Yikra levenim bat ve'yin tzorchem yemo ba'avat ne'im shimchem ve'lo yushbat shuvenu be'yom Shabbat Yadadai
Shabbat Shalom. May we go in peace, may we come in peace.